Authority, and he's going to talk to us specifically about how they've leveraged that specific vehicle to bring fiber to the home in rural areas that were previously unserved. Robert?
Thank you. So I want to thank everyone for the opportunity to speak tonight. Obviously, it's always nice to be able to get in front of a bunch of folks, and we like to talk about what we've done on the Eastern Shore because it's kind of way off, almost in the ocean practically. But the Eastern Shore is surrounded on three sides by water and one side by a different state, so it's kind of a unique environment. Unlike Arlington, we actually have about 40,000 total people on the whole Eastern Shore, so we're a much smaller community, and just to give people a scope of the size, at least from houses and our people perspective, we got about a little under 29,000 homes on the Eastern Shore. So it's certainly a challenge in a rural environment, and this is part of the discussion I think Gigi was touching on earlier, that there is there's the broadband divide, and it exists in the rural environments across the country as well as in the more urban and suburban areas. But for us, being very rural, we have had a unique challenge. Part of it is that you don't have a lot of houses, you don't have a lot of homes to be able to, and businesses to be able to help cost offset the build out of the network. Additionally, we have this little thing called the Chesapeake Bay Bridge Tunnel. That's an 18-mile bridge. So we kind of have to go quite a ways to get to the Hampton Roads area and connect to the rest of the world. The Broadband Authority started in 2008, and we were formed under what Virginia calls the Wireless Services Authorities Act. And it was created to allow municipalities to put together a broadband entity. And as an aside, wireless doesn't necessarily mean the technology, it just was the name that they coined it in the law. And it allows municipalities to form a board and create a new entity that is, the purview of it is to extend broadband to the community, and it can be done in many, many ways. Many of you may have heard of the term open access or middle mile. There's many different models. In our case, we consider ourselves an open access environment, so we allow anybody to connect to our network in any particular location. We don't exclusively sell middle mile to just carriers. We actually connect end users in our network, which is a little different than some other folks do it. And a lot of these models they have their pros and cons. So for the first 7 years of our existence or so, we had exclusively sold to businesses, commercial carriers, wireless providers, and we had a community who was very hungry for broadband and weren't feeling like there was enough progress in that arena. And so in 2016, 2017 timeframe, give or take change, our board had decided to make a change, and we had started to take steps into providing rural broadband or residential broadband. And it's all fiber-based. We don't have any other technologies other than fiber to the home and fiber to the business. Our original funding was partially through grant money that we got from USDA, from NASA, and a little bit from the local counties to essentially establish the core network and the core backbone, and then the rest of it has been success-based. And I will say that it has been a huge benefit to the community. A couple notes about it. One of them is that generally property values increase. So your tax base increases anywhere between 2 to 5%. And of course, with Corona, I'm sure that that value is actually more because obviously people weigh and value broadband at a higher level. That also allows people to sell their houses at higher rates. So again, it helps with people's equity and people's ability to make money. It also allows people to be able to operate remotely. And I think I'm kind of preaching to the choir here. But we've had people, the moment we started selling residential broadband, we had people literally knocking on our door saying, hey, I have a grandson who is at ODU or is taking distance learning college well before Corona, and if they don't stay online, they get a failure for that grade. And so it was critical for folks to be able to have this stable connectivity so they could do things such as distance learning and telemedicine and teleworking and things of that nature. As a matter of fact, we have a person on the Eastern Shore who is a college professor, and he now, instead of traveling around the country, he does a lot of his presentations digitally, such as we're doing tonight, and he's able to stay local and actually be more involved in the community, which is a benefit to the community. the big things I want to touch on also is that the Broadband Authority prior to coronavirus also looked at ourselves, and our focus has always been a community focus. Again, being a government agency, our objectives and our goals are to serve the community in a fashion to provide and proliferate broadband. So when we're considering, do I build to this particular area, and what do I charge, and do I try to make as much money as I can? And again, I think Gigi touched on this very well, is that there's nothing wrong with making money. That's what this country is built on. However, when you're trying to cover a massive need and something that is very expensive, it is hard to, there's a burden there. And that burden is very difficult to carry, especially when you talk about low, medium income folks that don't have the depth of resources to be able to afford $1,000 installs, $2,000 installs, things of that nature. And the Broadband Authority, one of the things I always like to talk about when I present is that every dime that we make, barring paying regular salaries and gasoline for vehicles and lights to keep us going, the money goes back into the community. We reinvest in our build out every day. So there is no, it's not like we're paying off, a for-profit board, or we're not doing anything other than reinvesting in the community. And I think that was actually one of the reasons, to tell you the truth, why I came to the Broadband Authority, because I thought that was a huge benefit to the community and important. Since Corona's happened, the Eastern Shore has, just like every community, has struggled with, what do we do? What do we do with our schools? What do we do with the folks that can't now go to work, or people that, are concerned about traveling and for healthcare risk because they're in a group of folks that may be at higher risk. And so the Eastern Shore Broadband Authority has worked tirelessly to try to expand and connect as many people as possible. We also, and I think this was brought up in the last presentation with Holly, is that we also do, and this is where I take my little caveat, we do offer wireless hotspots on the Eastern Shore. There's about 15 of them currently that we serve up and down the Eastern Shore, from all the way up from Chesapeake. So somebody just posted about Chesapeake. From Chesapeake all the way down to the very southern edge of the Eastern Shore before you get on the Bay Bridge Tunnel. And those community hotspots were there well before Corona ever existed. And the idea was exactly what you're doing now with Corona, or enhancing with Corona, to allow people that may be mobile, that even people that are transiting the Eastern Shore, or folks that just don't have the finances to afford connectivity at their house, to have free access to broadband so they can continue to exist in the modern society where we do have this broadband technology and this digital technology, this digital marketplace. We've actually been working closely with the two local county school districts, as well as the local community college, to establish many more wireless hotspots, because the same thing, we are suffering the same thing as Arlington and many other communities, where the fall is virtual. And how do these students get access to connectivity so they can continue to educate themselves and grow into, mature contributors to the society? So we're putting in more wireless access points. We are expanding our network. We are continuing to evaluate where the best places are for our network to exist so we can connect more people. And we do make decisions. We're not making decisions solely on an economic perspective. We're not looking to say, well, where can I make the most money? Again, even as a government agency, we cannot look at it as, we don't care, because certainly we have to maintain the operation, continue to move forward. However, we do have a little bit more of an ability to look at from a heuristic and a holistic perspective and say, geez, this community really is an impoverished community and underserved. Let's go there first. Let's not necessarily go this route that may have, let's say, a more affluent neighborhood, and not that the affluence should or should not get it, but it should be balanced. And so we do try to take a relatively balanced approach to how we plan the next expansions of our network, including, demographics of the community. We do look at student addresses. We look at business addresses. We look at socioeconomic things, and I think some of the other factors. But we try to put this into a mix so that way we're weighting all these factors and trying to make a community solution, not just a financial solution. And I think that is something that, for a lot of folks, that resonates for the community. And I will say, and again, this is a little bit of my political note here, will say that the challenges within the Commonwealth of Virginia are that the state had, even barring the federal government, even the state has taken a very strong stance that they want private industry involved in all solutions. And I think it's a great perspective, and I think that it's great to have private industry succeed and thrive within the Commonwealth because we need that. However, I think there are some things that municipal entities do better. There's a reason that municipal entities, for example, provide water to the community. There's a reason that municipal entities provide sewer. There's some utilities that are necessary, and they're not really money makers. They're a public necessity. And I think, at least for our community, if the Broadband Authority was looking to just partner and help a partner make money, we wouldn't have the success that we have today. And so we focus on continuing to leverage our network in a community-oriented basis. And if we can help private industry also be part of that solution, that's fantastic. We do have multiple wireless providers that use our network, because prior to us, there was one wireless provider in one town on the Eastern Shore, and there was Charter in 2 or 3 towns, and that was it. Now, at this point, the wireless providers are in 14 of the 19 towns, or 15 of the 19 towns on the Eastern Shore, because of our network and our existing backbone that's there. So just the sheer nature of having that backbone has enabled the community to have multiple providers come into the area, but also one provider that is dedicated to the community. And that is our sole focus. And I think that that is extremely important for areas as they try to develop the community. And Tim, back to you.
Great. Thank you so much, Robert. It's great to hear the